What happens when a former president walks into what should be a routine news interview, only to find himself confronted with questions that cut far deeper than anyone expected? What happens when the cameras are rolling, the nation is watching, and the most trusted face in television news refuses to back down? This is the story of how Donald Trump ended up being escorted off the NBC news set after a confrontation with Lester Holt that no one saw coming. A story of power, pride, and the explosive moment when journalism collided with politics. The NBC studios at Rockefeller Center buzzed with the usual pre-interview energy. Makeup artists made final touch-ups, camera operators adjusted their angles, and production assistants hurried about making sure everything was in place. It was supposed to be just another standard political interview, something NBC had done countless times before. Behind his desk, Lester Holt reviewed his notes one last time, unaware that he was about to conduct one of the most talked-about interviews in television history. Donald Trump arrived at the studio with his familiar entourage, shaking hands with staff and greeting the crew with confidence. He appeared calm and self-assured, as he always did before going on camera. To him, this was just another chance to speak directly to the American people. As he settled into the guest chair across from Holt, straightening his tie and checking his reflection in the monitor, there was no sign that anything out of the ordinary was about to unfold. Lester Holt, known for his calm professionalism and commitment to fair journalism, had prepared carefully. He had interviewed presidents, world leaders, and controversial figures before, always maintaining his trademark composure. As the red recording light blinked on and the broadcast went live, Holt greeted Trump with his steady, familiar tone. The interview began smoothly, with light questions and friendly exchanges designed to warm up the conversation. Trump seemed relaxed, talking about his recent activities and commenting on current political events. For several minutes, the interview unfolded exactly as planned, smooth, predictable, and polite. But then something shifted. Holt leaned forward slightly, his expression thoughtful but firm. His tone changed, subtle but unmistakable, as he steered the discussion toward more serious territory. "Let me ask you something I think viewers really want to understand," he began. Trump's posture stiffened. He sensed the shift. The conversation was no longer casual. Holt continued, "There have been numerous allegations and investigations surrounding your business practices. The American people deserve clear answers. Can you address the specific claims about financial irregularities raised by multiple sources?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. The friendly tone of the first few minutes evaporated. Trump's expression hardened. His jaw tightened as he leaned back, clearly bracing himself. "That's a very unfair question, Lester," he shot back, his voice edged with irritation. "You're repeating fake news, stories that have been debunked again and again. I thought this was going to be a fair interview, not another hit job by the mainstream media." The tension in the studio thickened instantly. Camera operators exchanged uneasy glances. Producers froze behind the glass, realizing things were veering off script. Holt, however, remained calm. "These aren't allegations I'm making," he replied evenly. "They're documented concerns raised by regulatory bodies and investigated by law enforcement. I'm simply asking for your response to information already in the public record." His tone was respectful but unwavering, the mark of a journalist unwilling to be intimidated or deflected. Trump's face began to flush red, his frustration visibly rising. "You're being very dishonest, Lester. Very dishonest," he said, his voice rising. "These are witch hunts, politically motivated attacks, and you know it. You're supposed to be a journalist, not a prosecutor." The air in the studio crackled with tension. What had begun as a standard political interview was now transforming into a live confrontation, one that neither man could easily walk away from. "Why don't you ask me about the good things I've accomplished instead of repeating these lies?" Trump's voice rose, his trademark hand gestures becoming sharper and more animated with every word. The tension in the studio was escalating fast, and what had begun as a controlled interview was now teetering on the edge of a full-blown confrontation. In the control room, producers scrambled, their voices overlapping as they debated how to handle the situation spiraling live on air. Lester Holt, to his credit, didn't flinch. He didn't try to smooth things over or shift to a lighter topic. Instead, he met Trump's anger with calm professionalism. "I've covered your accomplishments extensively in previous interviews and broadcasts," Holt replied, his tone steady. But part of responsible journalism is asking about areas of concern and controversy. That's what the public expects from us, and that's what I'm doing here today. The public expects fair coverage, Trump snapped, his voice tight with frustration. They don't expect ambush journalism designed to make me look bad. This is exactly why people don't trust the media anymore. You're biased, unfair, and completely dishonest about everything I do. His words cut through the air like a blade. The accusation hit a nerve. For the first time since the interview began, viewers could see a subtle shift in Holt's expression, a tightening around his eyes, a flash of irritation breaking through his composure. Trump's attack had landed, but Holt stayed measured. "Sir, I have to respectfully disagree with that characterization," he said firmly. "My reporting has been recognized for its accuracy and fairness by journalism organizations across the country. I'm not here to ambush you. I'm here to ask questions that need to be asked." There was a new steel in Holt's voice now, the quiet resolve of a veteran journalist who had spent decades facing powerful figures and wasn't about to be bullied into submission. Trump leaned forward, pointing a finger directly at Holt. "Your reporting? Let me tell you about your reporting, Lester. You've been part of this coordinated attack on me from day one. You and your network. You've never given me a fair shake. Every story is negative. Every question is designed to make me look bad. That's not journalism. That's propaganda." The studio fell silent for a beat, the only sound the faint hum of cameras and overhead lights. Holt's jaw tensed, the first clear sign that Trump's accusations were getting under his skin. The polished restraint that had defined his career was being tested in real time, live before millions of viewers. "I reject that characterization completely," Holt said at last, his voice edged with firmness. "I've covered your administration fairly. I've reported on your policies both critically and positively when warranted. I've always given you and your representatives opportunities to respond. That's what professional journalism looks like, whether you like the questions or not." Trump's face was flushed now, the anger breaking through his usual layer of political polish. "Professional journalism?" he scoffed. "You call this professional? You invite me here under false pretenses, then ambush me with these ridiculous questions based on fake stories and lies. This is exactly the kind of dishonest reporting that's destroying trust in the media." "These aren't fake stories," Holt replied, his own composure beginning to crack. "These are legitimate reports based on documented evidence and official investigations. Just because you don't like the coverage doesn't make it fake news." His irritation was visible now, the usually unflappable anchor struggling to hold on to his calm. Suddenly, Trump pushed back his chair and stood up, startling everyone in the room. "I don't have to sit here and listen to this garbage," he said sharply, his voice echoing through the tense studio. "You want to attack me? You want to spread lies about me? Then you can do it without me. This interview is over." Cameras instinctively followed him as he yanked off his microphone, the studio crew moving on instinct even as chaos unfolded before them. Lester Holt remained seated, his voice carrying clearly over the stunned silence. "Sir, you agreed to this interview," he called after him, his tone steady but resolute. "These are legitimate questions that voters deserve to have answered." The clash between the journalist and the former president had reached its breaking point. What was meant to be a routine political interview had turned into a live showdown between accountability and defiance, an unforgettable moment in television history. "Walking away doesn't make the questions go away," Holt said, his voice carrying clearly across the studio. "It just raises more concerns about transparency and accountability." Trump stopped in his tracks, his face now red with fury. "Transparency? Accountability?" He shot back, his tone sharp and mocking. "Let me tell you about accountability, Lester. How about you be accountable for the lies you've spread about me? How about your network take responsibility for the biased, dishonest coverage you've been giving me for years? You want to talk about accountability? Let's start with you." The former president began moving toward Holt's desk, his steps aggressive and confrontational. The studio crew exchanged nervous glances, unsure of what they were witnessing or how they should respond. This was uncharted territory for everyone involved, a complete breakdown of the normal protocols that governed live television interviews. Holt rose from his chair to meet Trump, his calm professionalism giving way to a steely resolve. "I stand by every story we've reported," he said firmly. Our newsroom holds the highest standards of accuracy and fairness in the industry. If you have specific complaints about our coverage, you're welcome to present evidence of inaccuracy. But throwing around accusations of bias doesn't change the facts. Evidence? You want evidence? Trump's voice was nearly a shout now. The evidence is your own coverage. Anyone who watches your network can see the bias. Anyone who reads your stories can see the agenda. You've been trying to destroy me from the beginning, and now you want to pretend you're just doing journalism. That's a joke. Holt's face flushed, his usual calm shattering under the weight of Trump's relentless attacks on his integrity. My integrity and the integrity of this newsroom are not up for debate, Holt shot back, his voice rising to match Trump's. We report the news based on facts, not on what makes political figures comfortable. That's our job, and we do it regardless of who likes it or not. Trump let out a bitter laugh. Your job? Your job is supposed to be informing the American people, not pushing a political agenda. Your job is supposed to be fair and balanced reporting, not hit pieces designed to influence elections. You've forgotten what journalism is supposed to be about. By now, the confrontation had escalated to the point where both men stood face to face across the news desk. No longer interviewer and subject, but adversaries. The professional boundaries that typically governed such exchanges had completely dissolved, replaced by raw animosity and mutual accusations of dishonesty. I haven't forgotten anything about journalism, Holt responded, his voice carrying an emotion viewers had never heard from him before. I've been doing this for decades. I've covered presidents and world leaders, and I've never had anyone question my integrity the way you're doing now. Maybe the problem isn't with the questions. Maybe the problem is that you don't want to answer them. Trump's eyes blazed at the suggestion. The problem is that you've already decided the story you want to tell, and you're trying to force me into your narrative. That's not journalism. That's activism, and I'm not going to participate in it anymore. With those words, he turned and began moving toward the studio exit. But Holt wasn't finished. You can't just walk away from legitimate questions about your conduct, he called out, his voice ringing through the tense studio. The American people deserve answers. Running away from tough questions isn't leadership, it's cowardice. The words stopped Trump cold. He turned around slowly, his face a mask of barely contained rage. Call me what? He asked, his voice dangerously quiet. The entire studio held its breath, sensing they were witnessing a moment that would be replayed and analyzed for years. Holt stood his ground. I called it what it is, he said, his tone unwavering. Walking away from accountability is cowardice. You came here for an interview, and part of that process involves answering difficult questions. That's how democracy works. Trump began walking back toward Holt, his movements deliberate and threatening. You have no idea what you're talking about, Lester. No idea at all. I've faced tougher challenges than anything you could imagine. I've dealt with real problems while you've been sitting behind a desk reading teleprompters. Don't you dare lecture me about courage. Then prove it, Holt challenged, his voice steady despite the charged atmosphere. Sit back down and answer the questions. Show everyone watching that you can handle the scrutiny that comes with public office. Show them you're not afraid of the truth. The challenge only seemed to infuriate Trump further. I'm not afraid of anything, especially not some biased reporter with an agenda, he snapped. What I'm not going to do is sit here and be ambushed by someone who's already decided to make me look bad no matter what I say. This whole thing is a setup, and everyone watching can see it. The studio had fallen into complete chaos. Holt stood firm as Trump's fury reached its peak. The only setup here, Holt began steadily, is the questions I prepared based on legitimate news stories and public records. If that feels like an ambush to you, maybe you should ask yourself why you're so uncomfortable discussing your own actions and decisions. Trump's face darkened to an angry shade of red. My actions and decisions? He shot back. Let me tell you about my actions and decisions. I built a business empire. I served as President of the United States. I accomplished more in 4 years than most politicians manage in their entire careers. And what have you done? You read other people's words off a teleprompter. I've informed the public about important issues for over 3 decades, Holt retorted sharply. I've covered wars, natural disasters, elections, and yes, I've held powerful people accountable for their actions. That's what journalists do in a free society, whether those powerful people like it or not. Trump began gesturing wildly, his voice booming across the studio. Free society? You call this free? You call it free when the media gangs up on political candidates they don't like? When reporters abandon all pretense of objectivity and become political activists? This isn't journalism, this is warfare. If asking tough questions is warfare, Holt replied coldly, then maybe you're not cut out for public scrutiny. Maybe you should stick to friendly interviews where nobody challenges you or asks you to explain your actions. The jab landed hard. Trump's eyes flashed with rage as he stepped closer to the desk. You think you're so smart, don't you? You think you're better than everyone else. Well, let me tell you something. Nobody elected you to anything. Nobody voted for you to be the judge of what's right and wrong. You're just another biased media hack with delusions of importance. And you're just another politician who can't handle being held accountable. Holt shot back, his patience gone. You want to be treated like royalty. You want softball questions and endless praise. That's not how this works in America. Trump slammed his hand down on the desk, the crack echoing through the studio. Don't you tell me how America works? I know more about this country than you ever will. I've actually done something with my life, something real, unlike you, sitting here reading other people's words. You've certainly done something, Holt replied icily. The question is whether what you've done has been legal, ethical, and in the best interest of the country. That's what we're trying to find out here today. We're not trying to find out anything, Trump exploded. You've already made up your mind. You, your network, and the rest of the corrupt media. You've already decided what story you want to tell. This isn't an interview, it's an execution. The only thing being executed here, Holt said evenly, is your credibility. Every time you refuse to answer a legitimate question, every time you attack the messenger instead of the message, you're showing the American people exactly who you are. That final remark seemed to break whatever control Trump had left. He erupted into a furious tirade about fake news, media corruption, and bias, his voice cracking with rage. The crew froze, unsure whether to intervene or keep filming this historic collapse. Producers, fearing the worst, had already summoned security. Moments later, 2 guards appeared at the studio door. Trump noticed them instantly, his fury turning to defiance. You want me out? He barked, pointing toward them. Fine, I'll leave, but don't think this is over, Lester. Don't think you can attack me and get away with it. Everyone will know what really happened here today. Everyone already knows, Holt said calmly. They saw it live. They can judge for themselves who was asking legitimate questions and who was having a public meltdown. As security escorted Trump toward the exit, he continued shouting over his shoulder. This is what the corrupt media does. This is why nobody trusts them anymore. Remember this, America. And with that, Donald Trump was gone, leaving behind a shaken crew, a stunned host, and millions of viewers who had just witnessed one of the most explosive moments in television history. So, what do you think about this confrontation between journalism and politics? Was Lester Holt right to press forward with tough questions, or did he cross the line?